Welcome to Reels on the Rocks, the show where your hosts Whiskey and Sweet Tea discuss film from the unpretentious perspective. Really Good Remakes is the topic this month, with today's focus being 2018's Overboard. Don't forget to like, subscribe, hit that notification bell, and as always, please be advised that spoilers are ahead.
What is it I'm craving, Whiskey? What is it? Something sweet, but not too sweet. It's a papaya. Am I craving papaya?
It could be a mango.
Welcome back, everybody. Welcome back. We're back with another episode here at, I don't know, the tea house / whiskey bar. We really need to come up with a name for that. Or is there a whiskey tea bar? I don't know. Well, maybe we'll start something.
Good question.
But we're back with our second episode of Really Good Remakes. But before we get into the movie at hand today, I understand Whiskey has brought some info to our attention.
Well, it was a big opening weekend for Ryan Coogler. Before I get into that, I will say, you guys will notice if you're listening to this on YouTube Music, but if you're not, we now have Letterboxd, so you guys can find us on there. We'll be plugging that again at the end of the episode, because our social media has been chaotic since the creation of the show. First we were on Twitter, then it got changed, and then for a while we were on X. We have an Instagram that I think we never post on, so I don't know. We're always saying to reach out to us, so now we at least have like a movie-related social media platform that we can talk to people on. So that's something I think is important and long overdue. It's been something I've been thinking of having us get on for like the last 2 years, so I'm glad we finally did that. But before that...
Well, first you want to say what your username is.
Yes, it's whiskey, all undercased _ ROTR for Reels on the Rocks.
And of course, that would make me Sweet Tea _ ROTR.
But yours actually is capitalized properly.
Yes, capital S and capital T.
It didn't like me when I was creating my name. I was trying to do it the way T did it, but it was not working until I got rid of my capital letters and put an underscore. So I guess I'm just an emo girl on MySpace on the site.
I mean, it fits your vibe.
I should have put in some X's and some O's and some captcha art. I don't know.
And some ooh-woos.
But some ooh-woos. The biggest news I'd say that happened, I initially was just like, because Sinners came out last weekend, Easter weekend, massive performance at the box office, especially for a year where everything has been underperforming. Until this came out, like, number 3 highest grossing thing of the year was the new Snow White movie. Let that sink in.
That is
the movie that... Well, and it was bombing too. Like, compared to everything else, it still got like 100 million or whatever. But compared to how much they spent on it and all the hell that Disney went through, severely underperforming. But that is the state that things have been in this year. So of course, it's this time last year we were talking about the doom and gloom in movie news at the box office. It's just Q1. We said this last year, and we were proven right when like Alien Romulus and Twisters and all those other movies came out. So, this summer, I'm sure things are gonna get better at the theaters. But Sinners was like the big original idea from like a popular filmmaker at the time.
Yeah,
and I did not think that was going to be worth talking about as a mini topic, but something that became kind of big news after the fact, at least after the fact that, oh my God, it's doing super well at the box office. Coogler made the most unreal deal with Warner Brothers that's kind of unprecedented. Did you hear about this at all, too?
Yes, he was able to negotiate for full ownership of his film after a certain period of time. Like the rights revert back to him.
It's 3 things. So one is Final Cut, which is hard to get unless you're like a big name director like Quentin Tarantino or the dreaded Scorsese, or like that's a thing that even I believe that's actually one of the reasons Chris Nolan left Warner Brothers, is I don't think he got Final Cut on Tenet, something like that. But there you go. Like, if Chris Nolan can't get Final Cut on something, it's a tough thing to negotiate even when you're a famous director. So he got Final Cut on Sinners. And I should have written down the exact terminology, but I figured I'm going to have to explain it anyway. The other thing that's really crazy is normally when you are a director of a film, you do not get to make any profits from opening weekend. Like, the studio has to earn its money back before you can make any money off of the movie.
Right.
Not the case with Sinners. That's another thing he was able to negotiate. So he made a percentage of box office returns for it right out of the gate. So that's crazy. And the last thing is what T was talking about. So after 25 years, he will have full ownership of the IP. So it'll be in 2050, and that also might seem kind of dumb if you're listening to the show, but keep in mind, like, the thing that keeps these studios wealthy is their ownership of these IPs. Things like Harry Potter, Star Wars, pick more. The fact that Disney can just crank out as many Star Wars things as they want, and they own it. George Lucas sold it to them way back when, so he doesn't have ownership of it. And all of the toys, all of the TV show spinoffs and whatever go right to Disney. Quite frankly, that's like a thing too. So George Lucas, back when he pitched Star Wars to 20th Century Fox, he got nothing out of the movie because they didn't think that it was going to perform well, but he got 100% of the merchandising rights.
Yeah, that was
so
a
George
mistake.
Lucas. Yeah, right. Because that was the funny thing. George Lucas made nothing on the movie, but he just made tons of money off toy sales and stuff like that. So, basically, it's not just the movie. Ryan Coogler, by 2050, any sequels will be, he'll own them, even if he ends up if there's a Sinners 3 in a few years and he didn't direct it, he'd probably be a producer on it. But any of the sequels, any video games, any merchandise, full ownership to him. And also that time span might seem like a lot, 25 years, but that's actually he'll have full ownership of his movie before Quentin Tarantino has full ownership of Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. So because that's not an uncommon thing either. It's sometimes they'll do deals like that, but it's usually crazy amounts of time, 40 years or something like that. The filmmakers don't even really get to enjoy the ownership of their IP, but their estate does, their kids do. So it's just unprecedented. And so it sounds like you had heard about it then, T. Well, especially since I just laid out the whole deal, do you have any thoughts on that? Do you one of the things that was being brought up a lot was the alarm bells were going off, this is the end of the studio system. I find it interesting that Warner Brothers would even cut a deal like this with him, because it's an original IP. He is a big director, but that's part of what makes it so puzzling to me, because all of his movies have been hits so far. He did Creed, he did Black Panther 1 and 2.
My guess is they just didn't believe in this movie as a thing. Whether or not it's good for the studio system or bad for the studio system, I do think this is a step forward for artists everywhere. Much in the same vein, I'm kind of putting in the same vein of Taylor was re-recording her masters so that she could own all of them and have total control over them. I think this is an important thing for Ryan Coogler to do, to own his work. I kind of think that this forces studios to actually try when it comes to movies now. You know what I'm trying to say? Because if they can't just, inherently fall back on, we have this backlog to get us through everything. It's what's the motivation to actually, work into creating something? So I think it's good on both fronts. I think it's a huge win for artists like Ryan Coogler and hopefully future directors as well, to be able to have the opportunity to enjoy ownership, not only just own their art, but enjoy and reap the benefits of that art. And yeah, this is also saying, for in this case, Sinners is a huge hit. People are loving it. I mean, they could also ending up saddled with the ownership of something that's bad. So but and then I think on the studio side, this works for them to work to try to. We always talk about original thing and remakes, which actually kind of touched on the topic of this month, but
exactly,
it does force them to actually try to actively be trying to make something new, something fresh, something interesting, instead of doing what Disney has done for the past almost 2 decades now, and it's just remaking
live action remakes,
same story,
and I mentioned
same story, different typeface.
Star Wars too. I brought that up. And
Star Wars, I don't mind as much because they are just expanding the universe out. Where they are is heavily leaning on the fact that it is a recognizable IP, but they are expanding the universe. So that one doesn't necessarily bother me as much. I'm just talking about the ones that just come across as just straight cash grabs, which is a lot of
for sure
movies and things nowadays. And it's like also. It's like, why would you not want your artist to own their artwork? They did the heavy lifting for you. All you did essentially was give them the money. Now, some people might argue that, and like we've talked about in some cases, suits are helpful. Like in the case of actually the original Star Wars, if there wasn't people there to contain George Lucas, Star Wars wouldn't be the classic it is today. I'm not saying that they don't have a place. All I'm saying is that when somebody comes up with something, crafts something entirely, they should be able to own it. Now the problem does come about when the studio itself goes out and says, hey, we want to make this kind of movie, this is what we have, like we're adapting a book, we're bringing on person A to write it, person B to direct it, then you have to talk about who does it revert to. Does it revert to the original author? Does it revert to the writer? Does it revert to the director? That's a different sort of circumstances. But it sounds like with this film in particular, Ryan Coogler was involved in all the aspects of making it. This was his idea. He brought it to them. I believe you said he wrote it too, right?
Yeah. From my understanding, this is like a passion project. I think and I'm kind of talking out of my ass, so if I'm wrong, but I'm pretty sure I heard somewhere that this is something he's wanted to make for a while. It's like his own. It's I don't know if you've seen any trailers for it too. It's a vampire movie.
It's a period vampire movie.
It's a period vampire movie. It looks cool. I was very intrigued by the original trailer, which I feel like I saw during Alien Romulus. It feels like it was a while ago, but it wasn't very clear what it was. It just looked really spooky and cool. Right. I have not yet seen it, by the way. I know the horror fan of the show has not seen the vampire movie. I was busy at my day job all weekend. I plan on seeing it this upcoming Monday. But that's the other thing that's super exciting about this, because it's what you were talking about. This is interesting in a lot of ways, because another thing you just constantly hear studios talking about, we were talking last episode about how they're gaslighting the theater business into thinking they're the ones who are not innovating and stuff. But another thing that they just... I bring up Star Wars, they are expanding the universe, but also it is very, uncreative sometimes.
It can be.
It's easy, for instance, I like this show, but, Obi-Wan Kenobi the show, for instance. You know what I mean? It's, it's not a new character, it's pretty much just, people like this character, people like this actor who played this character... So they are. It's a half measure where it's you know what I mean.
It is filling the gap from the prequel trilogy to the original trilogy.
True, but still, it's not a wholly original thing. Mm-hmm. You know what? It's like you go back to the Universal days with the monster movies, and it's let's churn out 8 Dracula movies.
Right, our favorite.
We've talked about the classic originals and stuff, and Bride of Frankenstein doesn't count because it's a good movie, but there were something 7 Frankenstein. This has been going on forever. And the other thing that frustrates me about the movie going public is they say they don't want this. And then the box office numbers tell a completely different story. Everyone was roasting the Minecraft movie like 6 months ago.
Yeah.
Highest grossing movie of the year so far, ladies and gentlemen. Like it is people just keep it's the same. We just talked about the Disney remakes, the live action remakes. Right. Everyone always bitches about them every year. And then they are one of the highest grossing movies of every year. Like, put your money where your mouth is, guys. If you don't like this stuff, stop seeing it and start seeing stuff like this. Because that's the thing that makes this so exciting is I agree with you. I think Warner Brothers was expecting maybe this will be a modest hit.
Yeah.
But they just didn't have faith that it was going to be like a big hit. But yeah, I think that's enough of that, and we can get right into the meat of the episode.
The meat of the episode.
Meat of the episode.
This is Whiskey's way of letting us all know that he knows how to marinate. I don't know what. I forgot what you did. You did something with pork. You slow roasted pork.
Yes, I marinated some pork in some. Basically, I made like kind of half-assed carnitas because I didn't follow like a recipe, but I did the whole marinating in orange juice thing,
right? So
that you traditionally do, plus some orange blossom honey. So that was fun, just kind of seeing if it makes a big enough difference. But that's what I was doing all day.
So for all you she's and theys out there, Whiskey can cook. Speaking of cooking and
but
things
I can't
we
read.
Consume, he can't read. What are you drinking this episode?
Well, I am having the most pathetic pina colada because I tried to throw it together while I was making my other stuff.
You know, we can't see it. You could have just said you made a pina colada.
Well, so I bring up that it's sad because, you know, this is a film about the haves and the have-nots, and, you know, the hero of the film is sort of making ends meet with what they have. And so, unlike the last episode, this is also a rum cocktail, but it is being made with Kirkland brand spiced rum.
Okay.
Dole pineapple juice, which I had trouble finding it, so I just have, like, crushed pineapples that I like drained what I could of the can in there, and then coconut cream from like a cocktail squeeze bottle thing. It does not look nearly as good as one you would get at a resort, but it's the sort of thing you would maybe pull together if you were trying to feel a little luxurious on a shoestring budget,
right?
Which I think is very apt for this film.
What
about you, T?
So I, of course, am having a papaya smash. Just because I've always loved that line in the movie. Am I craving papaya? Is that what I quote that all the time? It's papaya, some agave nectar, tequila, Aperol, and then some lime juice and orange juice. I got the recipe from Spruce Eats. My goal, though, was to make it look... I guess maybe I was masquerading as Leo while making this. My goal was to make it look as close to the cocktail in the espresso music video as I could. So I did use my souvenir glass from the Hard Rock Cafe to pour it into. But yeah, no, it's quite tasty.
Good stuff.
So the movie, that being said, will bring us to the movie of the hour. 2018's Overboard. You're talking once again about a really good remake, and this one might be a hot take for me, but I really do think this is a really good remake. Let's get, what, as you said last week, the boring stuff out of the way.
Woo!
It was directed by Rob Greenberg. He's done episodes of How I Met Your Mother and Scrubs. The screenplay was by Rob Greenberg, Bob Fisher, who worked on We're the Millers, and Leslie Dixon, who wrote on Mrs. Doubtfire. Cinematography was by Michael Barrett. He did Don't Mess with the Zohan, Ted. A lot of these people, when I was looking into, did a bunch of comedies. The music is by Lyle Workman, and I guess he also did the music for Superbad. As in our cast here, we have... Okay, now bear with me. I had to actually call a friend, ask how to pronounce this. Eugenio Derbez in the role of Leo, Anna Faris as Kate, Eva Longoria as Teresa, Mel Rodriguez as Bobby, Fernando Lujan as Papi Montenegro. And then we had Cecilia Suarez as Magda. And Mariana Trevino as Sophia. And then, right, we had in our budget here, this was a budget at $12 million. And the box office, it did 91.2 million worldwide. So obviously did very well. Fun story about this movie. This movie actually came out when I was working at MGM. And so this movie, we did get to see it for free during the workday at MGM headquarters, which is really fun. I really did enjoy this movie, but I don't work for MGM anymore, so I don't feel bad talking about it. So wait, no, basically what I'm trying to say, not feel bad talking about it. What I'm trying to say is there is no, I don't know, what's conflict of interest? That's what I'm trying to say.
Animosity?
Not animosity. I don't have animosity.
Oh, you don't work for them anymore, so yeah, no conflict of interest.
I mean, that's what I was trying to say. Yeah, conflict of interest. Anyway, so Overboard...
Sponsored by MGM Resorts.
Okay, you know, they're
Throw
not...
your life away at the slots.
They are unrelated now, just so you know. But yeah, Overboard 2018. Now, this is the first time you had seen anything of Overboard, so you actually took the time out to watch this and the original, so you'd have something to compare it to. And because you did that, I decided to rewatch the original as well. Which one did you watch first?
I watched them in order. So I watched the original one first, and then I watched this one the following night.
Okay. And since we're talking about the new one, though, let's start with, what did you think of the new one?
Well...
Uh-oh.
So here's the thing. Like, I'm gonna not talk about because I think it's... Here's a fun fact about me. I didn't know this was a remake when it came out, because that is so how, like, it's not my genre. Again, This is a romantic comedy, both of them. I don't know if, like, my parents just didn't like this movie, or if it never came up, or what. I just never saw this movie or was aware of its
kind of
existence.
like a cult classic, I would say.
Kind of. I mean, people from that era certainly know it. I actually had a coworker, because part of the reason I was curious as to you liking this new one, I had a coworker at a past job who was just like, ooh, like, that looks horrible. I don't want to see it because, you know, the original is a classic and all this other stuff. And I was like, oh, that's a remake. And oh, yeah, Goldie Hawn and Kurt Russell. So that always kind of stuck out and made me kind of think, oh, wow, maybe the new one, you know, is just like a cash-in. The fact that it did well was interesting. I didn't look up any of the, you know, numbers or anything before going into this recording. So I remember it being marketed. Like, I remember hearing about it, seeing commercials for it and stuff, but, you know, I didn't go to see it, so I wasn't really sure how the reception went. So it's neat to know that it did do well.
Yeah.
But I would like to say with the original, you guys can sound the alarm, because, oh my God, Whiskey likes a rom-com.
Well, that actually doesn't surprise me. You tend to kind of like those movies that are kind of like in the vein of the OG Bad News Bears.
Yeah, I mean, so this... It's interesting. I will put out there, I don't hate the new one, but I was really surprised at how much I liked the old one. And I do have some, like, valid criticisms of the new one. It doesn't, like, ruin the movie or anything, but the original, I was really amazed at how funny it ended up being. Kind of in a way, like, it's a little racier than the new one, because, you know, I think some jokes wouldn't fly. Like, there's the whole where he's so. First off, if for some reason you haven't seen the original, this remake swaps the race and gender of the, you know, the rich person who goes overboard. Mm-hmm. So in the original, it's just, you know, Goldie Hawn, you know, rich white lady, and Kurt Russell's like a, you know, blue collar dude from Oregon, and you know, and if you don't know the story, so the rich person falls overboard, they get amnesia, And the person that they stiffed, who is like a working class person, pretends that they are their spouse and takes them in and essentially tortures them into being kind of a better person. And that's what is so good about both of these is, you know, there is that character change that you look for in any movie.
Right.
And you get this character you hate, and you kind of see how they like learn to be a better person. I was really amazed at how funny some of the stuff that Kurt Russell did to Goldie Hawn in the original. So it was, she's Annie and, oh man, what was his name? Whatever, Kurt Russell. But like, there's the bit where he's saying that he's going out to a bowling alley at night, when, you know, it's like,
which he does some. He does some. But the bit, like, it's just things where it's like, oh, well, when are you going to be home? I don't know. Just depends on how drunk I decide to get. Which, again, kind of a racy joke. And also that kind of implies that he's going to drive home afterwards. I don't know. His sons were really funny. Kind of, again, racier sort of characters. The oldest one's a pervert. One of them's an inventor, the other one's an actor, and then the youngest one just does like a Pee Wee Herman impression for the whole movie. There's like a thing with the youngest in both movies that I think is actually done really well with both of them. In this one, the youngest boy can't read, and in the remake, the youngest girl can't ride a bike, and they use that to a great extent in the new one. We'll get to that once we get to the new one. The thing that I really like, and this is what I'll say, this is like one of my bigger criticisms with the new one. I like in the original that they are both not necessarily good people. Like, they don't try and make Kurt Russell out into being like this saint. Like, yeah, he's a working class guy, but he's got some emotional immaturity about him, and he is neglectful of his kids. Like, the fact that he has not taught the youngest one how to read, and that he is just an absentee father when it comes to their schooling, and there's like, he's not a good dad. Like, he is struggling. Which is funny that you bring that up, because I've always thought that scene where the teacher confronts Goldie Hawn's character and lays out all the problems with the children, I'm like, except for missing the poison oak, she's not wrong. She really isn't wrong. And we're kind of meant to hate her because she misses the poison oak issue. But it's like everything else she said is completely accurate.
Yes. And that's one of the things I think the original does really better, and I feel like the remake just overlooks that aspect, because just in general, so Anna Faris, one of my all-time favorite funny ladies. And I actually think she's cast well in this, but just throughout this newer movie, I don't think they give her character any agency. I don't think they give her character any flaws, and they don't really give her very much personality. She is sort of an afterthought. And what's interesting about that is they give Leo a lot more backstory than Anne in the original. Like in hers, that's another thing I think is really funny, is her husband is just like a degenerate. Like, the whole time he lies about her going away, he's just dancing with like prostitutes and doing drugs, and it's like funny because, you know, he's got all this money, and he's just lying that like, oh yeah, we're on our way. Like, Annie's mother's just kind of this overbearing rich lady. Yeah. And he's lying to her. Like, there is not much backstory with that. Whereas with Leo, there's this whole drama with his father's dying and who's going to get the inheritance, and they actually kind of, that's another good writing moment in the new one, where it's like the character's really into telenovelas, and his backstory basically is a telenovela. But I think Anna Faris's character was super undercooked for this movie, because
I actually disagree. I don't think that she's flawless. Like, one of her big things is she is portrayed a little bit in this film as an absentee mother, not for the same reasons that Kurt Russell's an absentee father in the original. She's an absentee mother because she's overworked. She's trying to do what she can to keep her head above water, the kids' lives going, and everything else. But by doing so, she's essentially leaving the oldest daughter to raise the kids for her, which is something that comes up again and again and again. So I don't think that she has no flaws. I just think that they're presented very differently.
I think that they write that off as, oh, well, she's doing the right thing. She's working and she's studying. Like, they never, it's not a flaw, or it's not presented as a flaw, because it's like, oh, well, it's not her fault. You know, she's doing the best she can. And she never changes throughout the movie. There's never a point where it's like, oh, wow, I really let my kids down. The same way, like, there is something to be said in the original about, like, Kurt Russell actually, you know, improving his behavior as a father and stepping up to the plate more. With her, there's never that moment. It's just, oh, she's studying for the test, and oh, she passed the test.
There is sort of that moment that she realizes how much of her kids' lives though she's missing out on, specifically with the bike riding. We do get that moment when he tells her, oh yeah, I taught her how I ride the bike, and you can tell she's thinking,
true, but that moment is 10 seconds long. You know what I mean?
It's 10 seconds long, but it is showing you that she is aware. So, I mean, but here's the thing. I
just don't think it counts very much. It's like, and again, this isn't even, like, it's going to sound like I hate Leo or something. I think that what they did with his character was an improvement, but I think that they, like, backloaded it to him and then just kind of neglected her character. Because when you think of, like, how much screen time and how much, like, you know, character development is put in between them, it's all Leo. I can't think of any memorable moments with her the same way I can think of all the times he's on the work site or the way that he is with the girls. Also, I didn't hate him at the beginning of the movie. I hated Goldie Hawn at the beginning of that movie. And it's not that he doesn't do anything mean. Like, you know, he just fires the chef because he thinks his food is boring. But there's, like, I don't know, there's almost kind of this innocence to the way he's doing it. Like, it's almost like he's a giant child. Like, he's not cruel. You know, he doesn't, like, twist the knife when he's doing stuff. Whereas she is just, like, bad-mouthing the staff where they can hear her outside. And even just, again, this kind of ties into Anna Faris's character being undercooked. So in the original, Kurt Russell is hired as a carpenter to make her basically remodel her closet on the yacht. And he creates this cool hand crank shaft thing. Like, anyone would be like, oh my God, this is so innovative and so cool. And she just gets mad because it's the wrong kind of wood. Yeah. Now, in the original, what does Annie do that's... Oh, sorry, not in the remake. What does Anna Faris do?
What does Kate do?
She's cleaning the carpet. Okay, that's annoying, especially because the guy just, like, spilled champagne all over it. But it's not nearly the same, like, workload or craftsmanship. You know, she doesn't put as much effort into it as that. And then it's not even her, like, job that it's... Again, it's Leo being a dick, but he's doing it almost like a petulant child. Like, oh, I asked you to get me papayas or a mango, and you didn't. So, like, it's not nice. And that, too, I also don't even remember how much she said that he owes him. Like, I remember in the original, it's like $600, which if you think about, like, the, you know, 1987... I feel like that'd be like $1,800 now. So I don't even remember how much she says that he stiffed her.
So what happens? So in the new one, she did basically most of the work on cleaning the ship, or whatever. And they have this disagreement. She basically tells him off, and she gets fired. So she did still put in the work. I mean, it's not physical work, but it's time. Again, time is money. The whole thing. It's time she can't get back, and she's working like 3 jobs to make ends meet. So she could have actually done something to make money. Then she tells him off. Then, you know, he pushes her off the ship and then throws her stuff off. One of them being her carpet cleaning machine, which is not hers, belongs to her company, and the company now says they owe her $3,000. She owes them $3,000. So in a way, he is responsible for that $3,000.
True. However,
also, how did you not dislike him at the beginning? Oh my God.
It's his personality. Again, like, there's a coldness.
He's too charming.
Yeah. Again, like, I'm not going to say he doesn't do anything that would piss me off if I were in her position. but the way that his character comes across, it's hard to like hate him. And then also, I'm not saying that carpet cleaning is necessarily like, you know, not time consuming or anything, but it's not memorable or interesting. Again, like any opportunity they had to give her character some character, it's just not there. It's like, okay, she cleaned the carpet, and she, you know, and the other thing, speaking of agency, so is, I guess, her boss at the pizza place, is that Eva Longoria?
Yeah, so yeah, from my understanding, yes,
So
it's Eva Longoria and Bobby. They're the ones who own the pizza place.
So she doesn't even come up with the scam. Like, Eva Longoria is the one who tells her to pretend to be his wife in the new one, whereas in the original, it's all Kurt Russell's idea. And he has his friends do thing like forge documents for him. But again, it's like she doesn't even have the agency to come up with her own scam in her movie. You know what I mean? Like, that's the thing, just consistently. It's like she has very little memorable character traits besides she's hardworking. And she doesn't make any decisions for the whole movie. Her friends tell her to do the thing, and then when she's doing the thing, she's not even really around because she's just using the time to study for her test and work and do all that stuff. So I don't know. I like that's something I feel like it was much more balanced in the original, especially in a time when I feel like they could have been much more forgiving to the man and just, you know, oh, well, it's not his fault. Because the 80s, I'm pretty sure it was not as much of a time as now, where it's like, you know, they're not going to be extending any courtesies to women back in 1987. So the fact that they were kind of harsher on Kurt Russell's character was very impressive to me. I thought that they were just going to laugh off all of his immaturity as like, oh, that's just him. But again, like there is some character change with both of them, which, at least for me, with the types of romantic comedies I do like, I like it when it's about two people bettering themselves rather than, because like I've talked about like rom-coms I don't like, where it's just, oh, they want to be together, but they can't. Oh, but now they can. Like, just where there's, like, no character in the movie. It's just, like, almost a 13-year-old's idea of, like, what it's like to fall in love with your crush. That stuff I can't stand. Why I liked the original is because it was really about just these two flawed people changing for the better in order to be with each other. And I thought that was really sweet. One of my favorite moments,
no respect for the classics. I'm just kidding.
One of my favorite moments, which is recreated in this one, it lost some of its power just because I knew it was coming.
Yeah.
But the bit where he comes clean to Anne in the original and she doesn't believe him, that was so sweet to me. Just the idea that she is so on board, like she's fallen in love with him and she loves the kids and all of this other, and she just refuses to believe, like, no, you're cheating on me.
Yeah.
It's not the it's like, and it's just as good in the new one. Again, it's just some of the oomph was taken out of it because I had just seen the same scene the previous night. But that's the best parts of the movie for me, is stuff like that.
And actually, somebody, because I was reading people's reactions to this online, the new one, and somebody mentioned this. I'm gonna see what your thing is. They said that they thought they were like, oh, Leo is such a despicable person, because the thing that they specifically point to is when he pushes her off the boat. They said, oh, in the original, he was like, Kurt was like yelling at her and he's towering over her, so she was like defending herself. And in this one, they're like, he just pushes her off for no other reason. And I'm just like, first off, I don't think that was why she pushed him off the ship in the first one. In this one, I'm like, if that's the point, that's kind of the point, that he's awful. Which I know you said, you know, but I just thought that was funny that they were like, there was one person on Reddit. I'm just like, girl, were we even watching the same movie? But
no, and I agree with you, to be honest, because I feel like it's equally shitty of both of them to push them off.
Yeah.
With her, it's it's funny because I know what that person is talking about, because at first it's like he is in the right for kind of putting her in her place.
Yeah.
But just, you can tell she's kind of like, oh my God, he's going to hit me, or so,
Yeah.
and then he moves away from her and is like, just kind of,
the threat has subsided.
Yeah. The threat has subsided when she pushes him.
Yeah.
And that's the point. It's like he didn't do the thing.
Yeah.
And same thing with Leo. Like, they were about to like leave, and she was getting her stuff, and she was getting off of the boat, and then for, just to add insult to injury.
Well, he pushes her off.
Too. Again, it's...
He specifically says, or whatever, that they were going to San Francisco. And so he didn't mind her hanging out in the boat until she says, I'm going to be a pain in your ass for the next 12 hours. And then, like you talked about before, like a child, he's like, I don't want to deal with this. This is so hard. And then that's when he just
and even the way he did it, and the way he did it too is just boop. Like, it's, with Goldie Hawn, she actually had to shove him off. And with him, he just like just pokes her and she falls, essentially.
Yeah,
so
I love that. You're making me do this. I can't believe you're making me do this. So the good news is I was very excited though that you at least enjoy. I mean, you said you enjoyed both, but I've made a fan out of you of at least the original.
Yes, big time. And then there's like other things that I think were done better, but it's not this movie's fault.
Yeah,
like the original. Holy shit! It's like another one of those like. All of the best are on the project. You've got Gary Marshall directing. You've got Alan Silvestri doing the music. You've got a big band doing like, the songs inside the bars and stuff. And then you have Randy Newman doing like the end credits song. So music was something, no offense to the composer of the new one. It's just better.
Maybe this is just a cultural thing. I actually thought the music in the second movie slapped like real hard. Like, I love the soundtrack.
It's not bad. The original song they came up with to be kind of like the theme for the new movie was pretty good. Mm-hmm. It's not bad. It's just like there was something really like, especially in the original. It's funny because the main song that you hear during the opening credits almost feels kind of dated because it's almost like 80s synth trying to sound like banjo music. That's the way I'd describe it. Like, it's got this weird kind of quality to it that definitely sounds like an 80s movie, but it doesn't, I don't know, it suited the tone of the movie really well, and it got stuck in my head. So I really, and it's Alan Silvestri, so of course that's why. But I don't know. It's one of those things. I do not
like the Spanish pop that they were playing. Like, that stuff's a bop.
Oh sure. Yeah, no, nothing wrong with that. I mean, it kind of reminds me, like I said, I forget what big band from the era that they had do, like, you saw them in the original. They played at the bar and they played at his big, party for finishing the mini golf course.
Yeah.
But they had like some big 80s band. I want to say it's like
the Jim Dandy.
I think, isn't that what it was?
The Jim Dandy song, yeah. That's the one. Well,
yeah,
that's
the
the
Jim
one
Dandy
I remember
song.
them keep playing, yeah.
That's the one they kept playing, but I can't remember what the band was. Whatever. Like, that's kind of what that reminds me of with that. And that's another example, too, of what I say that they kind of robbed Anna Faris of having any character. So they both have, like, this big goal that they're working towards. It's like their dream, And for him, it's like to build a mini golf course. And for her, it's to get her nursing certificate.
But
again,
I will say,
there's nothing wrong with that, but it's less memorable.
I will say, though, that what I think I do like about this one in that instance is in the new one, she does put a ticking clock on it. And the original, it was kind of just like, it was sort of indefinite until they got tired of her. And the original, she does say, just until I get my nursing thing. So I do like that there is a little bit of pressure added there.
As I said, it's a mixed bag because there's like things that are done better. Or just like there was no thought put into the script. For instance, I love the little touch. So Leo teaches the little girl how to ride a bicycle. Something that is present in the remake but not in the original is, so like the kids are chasing after the limo during the moment when he's like being taken away by his family.
Yeah.
And in the original, it's like the kids stay with the limo as long as they can and it drives away.
Yeah.
I loved that she not only, like, she's the one that he connected with. Well, I don't know about most. He connected with the eldest one a lot too, but like she gets further than everybody else because
she hops on her
of
bike.
Because of the bike, and it's because of something he taught her how to do.
Yeah.
Like,
oh my God.
There's like that extra pain of like,
that
this
made
wouldn't
me
even
cry.
be possible if I hadn't bonded with her. So like, kudos to the screenwriters. I'm not trying to completely shit on them or anything. There are like genuinely really good, thoughtful things put into this. And even just like good nods to the original. And even like at the beginning, they mention at the psychiatric hospital, like, no one's had a case of amnesia here since 1987. So it's like
they reference the original.
They reference the original, and if you're one of those people who care about canon, you could say like, "Ooh, this takes place in the same universe."
Well, and then also, just because you brought that up, there's a couple other little fun things in there. Do you remember when the sister calls about the shark attack, and the guy was like, "If anybody would know, I would know."
Yes.
If you look at his uniform, his name is Jay Brody.
Good one. Good one. Good Jaws reference.
And then other boat movie reference is the main characters are named Kate and Leonardo. Sound familiar?
Are they from Avatar?
Oh my God! Stop.
Stop
Obviously, Kate Winslet and Leonardo DiCaprio in Titanic. Oh, you weren't kidding. Okay, I thought you were trying to be.
No, I was kidding. I was kidding.
So there's some boat references and stuff. So there's some fun stuff like that in the script. So we've talked about, things that changed from the original that you didn't like. Let's talk about changes that you did like. Because one of the things that I really like about this movie is his backstory as opposed to her is much more interesting. There's much more at stake. And what he learns as a person being there, like, I know you talked about it's only like really one character that changes. What he learns there is actually going to be to the benefit, he doesn't know it yet, of his actual life.
Yes.
So like, what changes did you like in the movie?
So I already mentioned his backstory. I think that it's interesting, and it does kind of give a bit of a telenovela flavor to things.
Yeah.
His sister's more of an interesting character. It's one of the mixed things is like, I think the original's funnier, and that her husband is just a sleaze and just cares about like doing debauched things with the money, and that's as deep as it is.
Yeah.
Whereas like his sister, like, they have an interesting kind of dynamic where he was a jerk to her, and that's part of, because she doesn't hate him, but it's kind of a heat of the moment thing where he was really rude to her when she was talking about, taking over the family business and the father going away. So it's not so much of there is a selfishness in that she wants to be the heir to the fortune, but it's more complicated than that. And then there's also more characters, because there's another sister, and then there's obviously the dying father, and then there's the whole oh my goodness,
who's gonna run the company?
Yes, but I'm trying to remember Leo's last name. It's
Montenegro.
Montenegro. The whole Montenegro clan is very interesting. I already mentioned the training wheels thing. I think it was kind of more fun to, and this is just by the nature of Leo being a man. Actually, just everything about that. They actually did a very good job, the screenwriters, of thinking about what makes a man feel like a loser. Because in the original, it's just like, oh, you used to be fat and short, and you were in the Navy, and you're a slut, and like all.
Yeah.
So it was very thoughtful, and it's like, what would hurt like a man's feelings, and some of it was the same stuff. It was, oh, you're fat, oh, you're a drunk,
yeah,
oh, you're unemployed, oh, and the one that's I thought was clever in multiple ways was making him sterile.
Yes,
that would absolutely hurt, especially like a Latin man's ego.
Yeah,
and tying that in the original, it's her panties that Kurt is like hiding from her in his car.
Yeah.
But in this one, and it's not even that she was hiding them from him, it was more of like, ew, he had condoms on him, I'll just shove these here and forget about them. But that was great too, because it had the same effect on him. It's like, oh, I'm sterile, I don't need condoms, so whose are these?
Right.
That was really smart. So the biggest difference, the original ends with sort of a comedic final line about like, oh, aren't you you're gonna be like living with us and you're gonna be poor. And she's like, what are you talking about? It's my money.
Right.
There's sort of that last joke where it's like, oh my God, so her husband wasn't even rich. He was just some dude that she married, I guess.
Yeah.
But he has no money. It's her yacht. It's her inheritance. Like, she was never dependent on him for anything. And it's kind of funny because for the whole movie you assume that she was like the trophy wife. You know that she has money because you see her mother and you know that like she came from a background, but you don't think that she has any like control over her financial situation.
Yeah.
So that's almost kind of like a good joke. It's really great. Again, like everything with Leo is perfect. If anyone listening to this, don't get the idea that I think Leo is badly written or that anything should have been taken away from him. Quite the opposite. I think everything with him is perfect. The only thing I would say, I just didn't hate him. Again, it was just sort of his nature at the beginning of the movie.
Yeah.
Like, it was hard to hate him because he was so fun-loving.
Yeah.
But making him choose between his fortune and Anna Faris, good. Step in the right direction. And then there's sort of the reveal after that, oh, he didn't need to choose anyway because the yacht was his. Since it was a birthday present, it was registered in his name. He owns it, despite him not being the one who bought it. So it's sort of like a bait and switch sort of thing, where it has the same happy ending, but there's a few extra steps to get there. I thought that was clever writing.
It's like the end of Waitress when she kicks Earl out before she finds out that she got left the diner and gets to run everything.
Exactly, just like that movie I still haven't seen.
Oh my God, I'm sorry.
No, it's all good. Well, Waitress the musical is possibly playing in the town I'm living in. So maybe I'll finally see it.
I saw that twice in LA. You need to go see it. It's very good. But back on topic with this. No, I totally agree. I think the ending, at least the ending for me, is much more satisfying for two reasons. One, what you mentioned that he does. I love how he says, most people don't really have to choose between love and money. Give me a second. So I do love that he does make the choice to leave the money behind, and he was totally fine. And then we get a kind of a time jump. We don't know how long it is, but he is content. You see him packing the lunch or whatever, and them living as just normal people. He is content. And then we find out later we find out at that point that he, got the yacht and everything else. So I thought that was really good on two turns because, like I said, he does physically choose between love and money, and then also we see what that life is like for him, and that he's still happy with it. And then the other thing, did you watch the credits?
Yes.
Okay.
Of course. Well, how could I not?
So of course,
I don't know if there was a full-on Marvel.
There was no. Oh no, there wasn't. There wasn't a mid-credit scene or an end-credit scene. Just the wedding speeches. But what I like about that is we do find out that they do get the money because his dad does buy the yacht from him. He's like, it's not for you, it's for my granddaughters.
Well, that was kind of, it's funny that it's sort of just like part of the credits, but that was sort of a nice touch too, finding out that he actually cares about his granddaughters, even though they're from not from his grandson necessarily. Like, he loves those little girls. That's a nice warm and fuzzy thing for the end of that one.
And also, I do like that because maybe maybe he has some character growth too, because he had a total problem with a woman running his company until basically he essentially, when he thought Leo was dead, he was forced to make it happen. But he was still unhappy with it. But going back to the telenovela backstory, one of the things I think really works with this is, and it doesn't work for me in the original, is like, what is the end goal? you know, in the old one, he's just like leaves her and then he goes and parties for I don't know how many months or whatever. I think it's 2 months. And then I'm like, dude, what was the end goal? Like, what if they never found her? You know, when she fell off the yacht, like, what was the end goal here? Whereas in the original, if everything had gone to plan, at her plan, they would have all been neatly tied up with a bow. So I do like that. I do look like that there was more thought put into this backstory, not just to make it more interesting, but also how if he were to stay there forever, it wouldn't have upset something in the backstory, because they were like, oh, she was like, oh, what happens if we can't find him? If this isn't him, she's like, oh, we just ship him upstate to a psychiatric facility. Like, he would never be heard from again. Like, nobody would know to look for him there. Like, so I did really, really enjoy that. But I will agree with you on one of your points where you said that Leo's more of a fleshed out character than Anna Faris is, and I totally agree. I almost feel like whereas the original was the character journey of those two people, this one's more focused on Leo's journey. And I don't I find his progress, I think, to me, more interesting than either of the two in the other one. That's just me. That's how I feel. Not saying that the original one, that wasn't a good progression, but I just find his more interesting. I don't know about you.
Is it because you're a Latino male, T? Is that why?
Well, possibly, but I just like, one of my favorite scenes of this movie is when he sits down with the guys, which, by the way, they have a great group of guys that he works with at the construction site, and he talks about how his life feels empty and that he's just a paycheck. Like, I think what you talked about I think you briefly mentioned on this, he's contemplating, like, really his existence in this world, and what he means to the family. And I don't really sort of remember Goldie Hawn having to sit down and contend with the fact that she's, in her mind, suddenly a mother.
Well, quite the opposite, actually.
Oh,
so,
okay.
Again,
Refresh
these
me.
things are... Well, it's all very based... Again, whoever wrote this definitely did a good job kind of switching things up so it's more appropriate for a man. Might have missed it, but so there's quite a lot of talk when she's still on the yacht about when she's finally going to, decide to have kids with her husband. And there's like a line with her mother over the phone where it's like, oh, but it's because when you have babies, you won't be the baby anymore. So it is, there is sort of that aspect of, and that's the whole thing too, is like women are more seen as the ones taking care of kids.
Right.
So they did a good job of like kind of implementing that in a way that makes sense with Leo, but there was much more emphasis on that aspect of her character growth, because she sort of is just content to be this dude's trophy wife and for them to just have their own separate interests. And what Kurt, and that's another thing, Kurt, oh my God.
Kurt Russell?
Kurt Russell, not Kirk, Kurt Russell. What he says to her that hurts her feelings is that she's bored. You've got nothing else. You're just a spoiled little princess and you're bored. And so you find problems, and that is what her problem is that she's bored. And so when she is with him,
she's not bored. Okay.
She's not bored. She's given purpose in her life because she has nothing to do when she's on the boat. And on top of that, she actually is motivated. Like, she not only like takes care of the kids, but she loves the kids. Whereas it's like she felt that if she had a baby with the rich guy before, that she would have to take responsibility for something. She wouldn't get to be the baby anymore. And so that is kind of a bigger part of her character growth, is taking care of the kids. With Leo, it's it's
just
one of those
him
things
learning
where,
to be a productive member of society and
Exactly.
learning to be a responsible person and to feel responsibility for something.
What they are told before they push the person off the boat is their problem, like their character flaws. With her, it's her refusing to grow up, take responsibility, and not be the baby. And with him, I forget what Anna Faris said, but it pretty much, like you said, I'm pretty sure it was like become a productive member of society, make something of yourself, actually exist to fulfill a purpose rather than just collecting, an allowance. So taking care of the kids is part of it, but it's also, there was a lot more of Leo doing his job at the work site. With Goldie Hawn, there definitely was like a montage of her doing mom stuff. But there was, it's not something you needed to see or have like extended scenes with or anything like that. And that is quite literally, they both have a moment where they're catatonic after one day of work. With her, she's sitting in the chair and the boys are just like, oh, should we call a hospital? While she's going, ba, 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 ba. And with him, it's like after he gets back from the work site, he flops down on the couch, and there's kind of a similar thing where he can't talk, and the girls are like, oh, should we call a hospital or call an ambulance? But,
he's
different
basically
things.
Like, rub some dirt on it. I mean, it's not what he says. That's basically his reaction. There's different...
Yeah, I mean, there was thought put into this remake, because, again, changing the gender, you can't just, like, copy and paste all of the same scenes in, because it just wouldn't make sense. It's when you're the man, you're expected to go out and have a job. So like, and that too, it's also foreshadowed at the beginning where Eva Longoria's husband's like, oh, I'd hire you for the work site, but you're too delicate and ladylike to be able to lift a bag of concrete. So, it's sort of set up like, oh, of course that's going to be his job.
Let's hop into how it was received. Now, neither of these films were very well received. I believe the original flopped at the box office, and when it's one of the reasons why it became a cult classic was because, movies that flopped were easier to license for TV showings. And so this used to be on TV a lot.
Well, I will say IMDb has the original rated 0.6 higher than the remake, so it's got that going for it.
Yeah.
Let's see.
This was not.
Nope, it was just broke even. So it had a budget of 22 million estimated, and it grossed worldwide 26 million. So yeah, basically a flop.
Yeah, so this was a flop. Like I said, again, just cult comedy status.
The original was a flop.
The original was. Because of, it's cheaper to license, so it shows up in a lot of TV and people get fondness over it, which is also kind of why I think that, what's that one movie that Stephen King wrote? The Shawshank Redemption.
Yes.
I have this hidden theory that people think it's good because it's nostalgic for them because it was on TNT all the time. Because it was also it was also a flop.
Well, you also haven't seen the movie.
Shut up. My brother saw it and he wouldn't shut up about it, which is when I did this research. Anyway,
you have a problem when movies are popular. You did the same thing with Anora. Like, oh, it's overrated. I could
only go by the trailer, and the trailer made it look like a completely different movie. I will say that.
Yeah, that's fairly true. However, you of all people, that was one of your biggest criticisms with Scorsese and superhero movies. Should learn from your own words, T. If you haven't seen the movie, maybe check it out before you start hurling insults.
No, but all that aside, so the original was a flop, and it wasn't even very well received. People kind of like panned it as like, they were trying to redo revitalize the screwball comedy. Like from the 30s, 40s, and they said it wasn't very good. So when this one was remade, because Overboard, although it wasn't a huge hit, it became a valuable property for MGM. At the time, it was just MGM. Because of its cult classic status, it's one that was fairly profitable to license and that sort of stuff. So the script for it was actually brought to them. I believe it was written outside of it, and then I think 3PAS, which is Eugenio's production studio. I think this whole process, he signed on to produce it, and he brought it in, which is probably when some of the rewrites happened with the whole family and the background and everything, because that's a big thing for him, is to have lots of Latinos in his movie for representation. And obviously they did a good job here. But where was I going with this? But this one was also kind of skewered too. It has a lower rating, which I this is my thing. I feel like if it had been released as is without the original, its score would align closer with what the original score is. You know, not great, but serviceable. Like it would be at 41% on Rotten Tomatoes instead of 24. Do you know what I mean?
It's interesting because while you were talking, I'm like shocked that critics didn't like the original when it came out, because again, I was going in blind. I didn't know if I'd like either of these, but I just really liked the original. And you're not wrong. I'm looking at Rotten Tomatoes, and it's a, you know, aggregator from all of the reviews written about movies, and you're right on the money. It's got a 46% rating critic-wise, the original. Yeah. And it's got a 74% popcorn rating. So people like the original, but critics don't. Now,
could you look at the popcorn rating for the 2018?
I find it interesting that critics didn't like the original at the time, but it seems like things have changed because it's higher rated on IMDb than... Because that's like another score aggregator kind of thing. Like people can vote on things on IMDb, so it's not quite the same. But it's interesting to me that seems to be the case. Like that over time now it would seem that critics... Yeah. Oh, yeah. Here, okay, this is interesting because so this one did make a profit, quite a lot of a profit from what it sounds like. Mm-hmm. So the 2018 one has a 24% with critics and it has a 54% with people.
Yeah.
So at least on Rotten Tomatoes, based on all of the critical reviews and everything, it's actually worse than the original.
So
that's what's crazy to me is people didn't seem to like it more, so that's weird that it actually like did well at the box office.
This is my theory, and I'm actually going to use this person's... I think I'm
here we go.
Read from this person. This is my basic theory on this. Overboard, on its whole, is a very problematic premise. And when it was released back in the 80s, it wasn't problematic, it just wasn't very good. And then people developed a fondness for it, they've developed nostalgia for it, and so I think the fact that it wasn't exactly like the original played a problem with it. The fact that it was remade, I think people didn't like. And I think the other issue is that any new viewers that came in were probably like, this is really problematic, I don't like this, so it didn't even get a chance to really have make new fans, and I feel like none of that is the movie's fault.
When you say it's problematic, is it like, go into that. What do you think's problematic about it? Because I'm guessing what you mean is just how kind of messed up it would be.
Well, yeah, it's essentially
to gaslight someone into thinking that they're your spouse. One scene, I did want to bring this up because I thought the old movie was going to go to a really bad place.
Yes, especially towards the beginning.
That's what I mean. So when Kurt Russell goes to the bowling alley, he doesn't drink. That's like the joke is like, ha ha ha, I'm going to make her think I get drunk. So he splashes some alcohol on himself, and then he goes home and he climbs in bed with, Anne, and seems to be forcing himself on her. And it turns out that it's all a ploy. He knew that she would react that way, and it was just a way to get her to sleep on the couch.
Yeah.
So he had no intention of doing that. That being said, that was like very close to getting into a not funny, very scary kind of situation. So that, thankfully, I feel like, depends on who you talk to online. Some people, like, just the fact that was even suggested as possibly going in that direction just makes it unforgivable to some people.
Right.
I think it dodged a bullet. But so is, in the same way, just the sort of way of, like, kind of forcing someone into into servitude for you, and convincing them all these things, because I don't think the new one crosses that line either.
No, it actually takes several steps back from that line. It brings it up very early because they're a couple, and because Leo. Wait, go on.
Well, so again, whoever wrote the new one, great job at swapping the roles, because once again we have a gender swap. So in the new one, Leo like really wants to have sex with her.
Yeah.
But he's not wearing the pants in the relationship, so every night he's just like, but also, what about now?
Yeah, it's also the presentation. Every time he asks, and she says no. And I love how she takes it a step further. He's not even sleeping on the couch. She's like, this is some of the stuff that they thought of in the new movie that people think is problematic because it is just like, as they point out, it's a stranger. She's like, okay, you're not even sleeping in the house. You have to sleep in the shed outside. You know, like I said, this movie,
which is funny.
Yeah, it adds comedic benefit, but it takes, like I said, it takes several steps back from the line. Because I think the movie got kind of close to it.
Here's something I haven't had a chance to say in the review yet. My obvious question, anyone who's listened to the show knows I like to coin a term when it comes to remakes or reboots or anything, or sequels, whatever. Does it justify its existence? And obviously, with what I've been saying so far, yes, it does. Mm-hmm. That instance, I actually think they capitalized on subverting expectations. So everyone who's a fan of the original was watching that, and they're like, oh, here we go, he's going to sleep on the couch. And then the fact that, no, we're taking it a step further. He can't even sleep in the house. He's got to sleep in the shed. Like, it's a great way to make people laugh who probably weren't expecting that they were going to be, you know, taking that extra step away from the couch.
Yeah,
you know, like I'm sure a lot of people were like expecting to know what was going to happen, but then they just changed it up on them and probably even made them laugh.
Yeah.
So that's like another example of that. But continue.
So, you know, like so that's but also just the concept of essentially we think you talked about it, gaslighting, basically kidnapping a person, trying to essentially implant your own sort of personality on top of them, and you know, it's like, it's weird, and it's like, if you think about it, this could really almost be a horror movie. It's like, what is it? It's like Changeling almost. Kind of. Maybe it's not really. I don't know. When they're like, yes, this is your child, and if you don't take this, then we're going to throw you in a psychiatric facility. That sort of thing.
Well, I'm curious. One aspect of the remake that could have gotten some people in a certain way. First off, like I think these kinds of conversations are worth having in film discourse, but some people just take it and run with it to a place that makes it really annoying.
Yeah.
Because one thing that could have been very dangerous for this movie is the fact that Leo is a Latino man.
Yeah.
And, you know, in this case, he is being exploited by a white woman.
So that's something that they do.
It doesn't get icky. But it's the sort of thing I could see someone screeching about online or like trying to cancel the movie because it's like, oh my God, what were they thinking? Well, I don't think the movie oversteps its boundaries in that way, but it, especially if you're going to bring up some like, you know, SJW stuff you came across online, I could definitely see that playing into it.
The term that she uses is forced labor. And I was like, girl, that is such a stretch. And I think
he gets paid, so you know that already kind of deflates that.
Right. I think she's talking. I think and I do think that she's talking specifically from. I'm like, first off, I looked up what forced labor was. Nothing that happens in this movie is even close to forced labor. I think she's talking about the fact that they essentially, you know, force him in the house to do stuff for them, and I'm just like. There's a couple problems with your statement. One, the guy who's doing all this is a very highly respected Latino actor, comedian, and producer. He worked on having this written. He brought all the elements into this. If he did not feel some type of way about this, neither should you. Do you know what I mean? And so that
it makes you wonder what the person on the other end of the keyboard looks like, because I feel like the people who are super vocal about this kind of stuff usually aren't even POC, you know, because the idea of calling it forced labor is really funny too, because again, one, he gets paid for all of the work he does on the job site. Two,
it's run by
you mean housework
people, that, and also
you mean
the stuff done to run a house regardless.
If you are married, like, this is stuff that if you lived alone, you would have to do. Like, what are you talking about? Taking care of the kids? you're talking about like cooking, like these are things like you could make an argument that he didn't want to do these things, but just like in the original, like it changes his character, it makes him a better person, and at a point you're almost like arguing that like hard work is bad because like I don't even know what you're arguing. It's weird. Like the whole point of why I think the original resonated with people who watched it on TV, and why the new one seemed to resonate with enough people that it turned a profit, is there is a Schadenfreude element of like, man, I wish this billionaire knew what it was like to have a hard day's work.
Yes.
You know, it's people feel that way about Mark Zuckerberg and Elon Musk today. You know,
Right.
you can throw all the buzzwords you want at the situation, but the fact of the matter is that it is fun watching a cruel and sheltered and naive and just stupid, like it's a lesson they need to learn about life, is that this is what normal people have to do to survive, you know?
Right.
And you could call it forced labor, but it's almost like a sort of willful ignorance that comes with that statement, where you're just brushing over a whole lot of context in the story.
I knew that this film didn't get good reviews, and I think one of the big issues is people. It's just each a different type of comedy. You know, it's like it has a wacky plot, which that'll turn a lot of people off because people are strange, and there's certain things, you know, if the plot is kind of a little too ridiculous, they're like, yeah, this is stupid. There was a lot of people that they were nostalgic for the original and it didn't have the same energy they were looking for. And, you know, but I think overall, I think this is a good remake. Now that we're going to start wrapping stuff up, I think this is a good remake because like you said, it justifies its existence. One of the things we talked about previously is that it is very aware of its source material, and it does try to fix some of the elements that may be a little bit more problematic. But one of the things I really like that makes this a good movie is I kind of think Overboard is almost like one of like the quintessential American rom-coms. It's just so bizarre and funny, and it's kind of romantic too. And I feel like this one is all those things, but what I like though is that the movie is essentially in Spanglish. You know, Spanish is the second most spoken language in America, I believe, last time I checked. And so it kind of really does feel like a melting pot of a movie, and I kind of feel like that does make it like a really good like American rom-com. There's something about those two worlds coming together really kind of makes me smile. And that's one of the things I really like about this. Plus the scene on the boat when they're figuring out what Magda has done this whole time, I think is one of my favorite comedic scenes in like a long time. Like one of my favorite lines now to tell people is, "You're sinister," when she finds out that she left him on the island, or when she's reading from the thing. I can't recite all dialogues, I can't speak Spanish, but I love she's talking in Spanish, and then she goes, "The beachcomber." I just think I just think that this stuff is like hilarious. I think that's hilarious. And they're all just arguing back and forth. There's all this family drama, like very much a telenovela. And that's one of my favorite comedic scenes in the movie, is that whole sequence right there towards the end in the what is it called? The bridge of the yacht. It's a great scene. But that being said, we're gonna start wrapping stuff up. So what kind of a rating though are you gonna give this whiskey?
Yeah, well, a lot of things you just said. I also think this is a really good remake. And I'm glad I also did the due diligence to see both versions, because it gives me something to compare it to. I think that if I had just seen this, I probably would have been like, I don't know, man, it's pretty good. Yeah. But, you know, even though I like the original better, this one I think is a good movie I will bring up over and over again when I talk about justifying your existence as a remake, because it changes things, but not in a like surface level way. There was real thought put into the fact that the gender was changed and that the race was changed. Like there's a lot of clever things. There's things that they improved on outside of that aspect of it. My biggest problem, as I said, is, at least in my opinion, I just don't think Anna Faris was as interesting or memorable of a character as Kurt Russell was in the original. And I think that would have been very good if they could have like given her something more memorable to be working towards, or, you know, just have like more of a personality or just agency in planning the scam, because she didn't really have any of that. And even as we've been talking about this movie throughout the review, it's all been about Leo. It's all been because it was all very like based on him. So like the original, I would honestly give a 3.5. I'll say it's one of my favorite rom-coms from now on. Yeah. This one gets a 2.5. It's really good. It could use some improvement, but overall it's fine. I wouldn't kick it out of bed or make it sleep in the shed. So yeah, like I thought it was a pretty good time, and I'm happy it did well. It's crazy. I also did not know how it performed because I just didn't look into it while I was watching it. So hearing that it made a profit is really nice to hear.
Yeah.
Sad that that is so bizarre to me that everyone seemed to dislike it despite it doing better than the original. So right. I don't know what that's about. But I think the critics for both films were a little too harsh, because finding out that the old one was panned essentially is kind of crazy. So don't care what either of them think. I think these are both solid little movies. And this one has a little bit more meat on the bones as far as the evil rich person goes. So 2.5 for me. But what about you, T? What's your rating? We know you like this one.
I like this one. I'm actually going to lower my rating though because of our discussion about the Anna Faris character, because I do believe you're right. I'm going to give it a 2.8. I was going to give it a 3, but I'm going to give it a 2.8 Pictures of Sweet Tea. I do think that it could be improved there, but I'm still want to give it a high rating because they still managed to write characters that I enjoy spending time with. And I think those are kind of like the best kind of movies, is when they're just people you enjoy hanging out with.
I will say that the supporting cast is more interesting in the remake. Like, we didn't really talk much about Kurt Russell's
he just had like the one
all
friend,
his friends and stuff. He has like the one friend, but he knows some other people in town. There's like 2 women I'm always seeing him talking to at the bowling alley.
Yeah.
You know, not a lot of time is like put into those people. So that is something I do think that the new one does better. And you're right about that. There's like the work crew, there's Eva Longoria, there's the rest of Leo's family, like just the supplemental characters.
Even Anna Faris's mother, Swoozie Kurtz, I love
her. Yes, she's like barely in the movie, but that's another thing that I was kind of thinking of when she showed up. I was like, yeah, that's right. Kurt Russell's like his parents. You know, you could say like, oh, maybe his parents are dead or something, but like, yeah, you never see them. You don't know what's up with them.
Yeah.
The closest thing you get to like real supplemental characters are his friend who helps him forge the documents, and then like the principal of the school.
Yeah.
And that's it. Like, pretty much. Like, there's some other characters, but they don't really make that much of an impact.
His friend you'll recognize as Mr. Trieger from Friends. He was their super for several seasons. But yeah, so you said 2.5, 2.8. So all in all, this is a solid movie, I think, from both of us. It's a solid, enjoyable movie.
But what do you think? Do you think that it's problematic and that we should be canceled? Or do you think that we should have rated it higher because they are both masterpieces? Let us know either in the comments on YouTube Music or on our social medias. I don't know what the deal is with our X account, but as I said at the beginning of the episode, we have Letterboxd already, so there will be a link in the description on the YouTube. We will, put that out there on our socials so you guys know to follow us, and we will be catching up on both reviews that we've done on the show, as well as, just having fun on Letterboxd, reviewing movies that we've seen separately. But until next time, I have been Whiskey.
I've been Sweet Tea.
Keeping it Kino.
And suck it, Scorsese.
See you next time, guys. You know what next month is.
Oh yeah, you should know what next month is. It hasn't broken a pattern since we started.
Longtime listeners know all about anime.
The OGs.
So we'll be we'll be, teleporting behind you and saying nothing personal, kids.
Oh my god.
In just a short amount of time. See you then.
Bye, y'all. Reels on the Rocks is a production of La Prince Laboratories. It is edited and produced by Alejandro Castillo and programmed by Jamie King. Original music is provided by Pat Mars and original artwork by Asa Esparza.